We're used to being the chosen one, the prophecy, the super soldier, the guy who picks up a gun and instantly knows how to save the world. But honestly, sometimes that gets boring. Sometimes you don't want to start as a hero. You want to start as a nobody, a peasant with no money, no skills, and shoes that are falling apart. There's a special kind of masochistic joy in games like that, where the world doesn't revolve around you. In fact, the world barely cares if you live or die. If you are looking for that ultimate rags to riches dopamine hit, where surviving the first hour is an achievement in itself, I've got you covered. Here are best single-player games where you start with absolutely nothing. This game is honestly one of the hardest and most unique experiences you will ever have on a PC because it takes the zero to hero idea and makes it painfully realistic. Most games treat you like the main character who is destined to save the world, but Kenshi makes it very clear that you are just another random person trying not to die. The world is this huge open mix of a desert and a sci-fi wasteland with samurai swords and robots, and almost everything wants to kill you. When you start, you have absolutely nothing in your inventory and you are usually hungry right away. You have no weapons, and even if you found a rusty pipe to hit someone with, you do not know how to use it yet. You swing slow and you miss a lot. You will see a group of bandits walking towards you and your only option is to run as fast as you can. If they catch you, they do not just kill you and reload your save. They beat you unconscious, steal your food, and leave you bleeding in the sand. Then you have to hope you wake up before a wild dog comes by to eat you. It gets even crazier because you can actually lose your arms or legs in this game. If a wolf bites your arm off during a fight, it is gone forever. You have to crawl to a town and try to buy a robotic arm to replace it, but robotic arms are super expensive and you have zero money. This forces you to do whatever you can to make cash. You might have to sneak into a shop at night to steal bread, or lure bandits into the town guards so the guards kill them and you can loot the bodies. It feels incredibly desperate. A huge part of the gameplay for a beginner is getting enslaved. There are bad factions that will just knock you out and put chains on you. Then they drag you to a stone mine and force you to work for them. You can spend hours of real time just being a slave. But this is actually a secret way to get strong, because you can practice picking the lock on your cage and you get stronger by carrying heavy rocks around all day. Eventually you can break out and run away, and it feels like the greatest escape movie ever. Once you finally get some money and maybe some armor, you can start recruiting other people. You find other desperate wanderers in bars and pay them to join you. Now you have a squad of weaklings instead of just one. You have to manage all their food and health too. Slowly, you start winning fights. You build a small house, then a farm, and then huge walls. After a long time, you become a major power in the world with your own town. The coolest feeling is when the bandits who used to beat you up come to your gates and your guards wipe them out in seconds. You start with absolutely nothing, not even hope, and you build an entire empire from the dirt. Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance is not just a game where you start with nothing, it is a game that goes out of its way to remind you how useless you are at the beginning. You play as Henry, the son of a blacksmith, and the game treats that fact very seriously. You are not trained, you are not educated, and you are not prepared for violence or survival. Even walking into the world feels dangerous because you do not have the skills, the money, or the respect to back yourself up. Early on, the game humbles you in small but brutal ways. You can't read signs or books, which means you miss information other characters take for granted. You get tired fast, your swings are sloppy, and enemies can overpower you in seconds. Stealing food, begging, or doing dirty work is sometimes the only way to get by. Guards will beat you down for looking suspicious, and townsfolk treat you like some nobody because that is exactly what you are. Combat is where this idea really hits. Sword fighting is slow, heavy, and technical. You cannot just mash buttons and win. At the start, your timing is off, your stamina drains instantly, and even one enemy can end you if you panic. Training with real instructors is not optional, it is survival. You slowly learn how to block properly, aim strikes, manage distance, and stay calm. The game makes improvement feel earned because it comes from repetition, not from magic stat boosts. Money is another struggle. You do not have a pile of gold waiting for you. Every coin matters. Armor is expensive, weapons break, food spoils, and repairs cost real money. You might have to choose between eating well or fixing your gear. Walking around in dirty clothes makes people trust you less, and poor equipment puts you at a real disadvantage. Nothing is handed to you, and the game is very comfortable letting you fail. As hours pass, something clicks. You start recognizing enemy patterns. You can survive fights you once ran from. You learn how to talk your way out of trouble, how to plan routes, routes and how to prepare before taking risks. When you finally wear full armor, read books, and walk into a dangerous situation with confidence, it feels incredible because you remember being the guy who couldn't even hold a sword straight. What makes Kingdom Come special is that it never breaks immersion to make you feel powerful too fast. The world stays harsh, grounded, and uncaring. You are not born into greatness. You crawl toward it slowly, step by step, mistake by mistake. By the end, you feel like a real person who survived a brutal world, not a power fantasy character. And that makes the journey from nothing to something feel more real than almost any other single-player game. Medieval Dynasty. This game is perfect for this list because it mixes survival with city building in a really satisfying way. You play as a guy who ran away from a war and you show up in this quiet valley with literally nothing in your pockets. Most games give you a starter kit or a weapon, but here you just have the clothes you are wearing and a little bit of food that runs out fast. The local leader basically points at the land and tells you that you can build wherever you want, but you have to do all the work yourself. The first hour is all about picking up sticks and rocks off the ground. It sounds boring, but it's actually super relaxing and makes you feel like you are really earning your survival. You have to craft a stone axe just so you can chop down a tree. Then you have to chop the logs and drag them over to where you want your house to be. You build your first shack piece by piece. You hammer the walls in and put the roof on, and when you are done, you have a tiny wooden house that belongs to you. It feels great because you know you started with 0 and now you have a roof over your head. Survival is not just about monsters here because the seasons are the real enemy. You have to hunt rabbits or deer for meat and cook it over a campfire. If you do not make warm clothes before winter comes, you will freeze to death. You spend a lot of time just trying to get enough food and water to stay alive for one more day. The game forces you to be patient and build your life up slowly from scratch. Eventually, you do not just survive alone. You start inviting other people to live on your land. You build houses for them and give them jobs like hunting or farming. It's crazy to think back to when you were picking up rocks by the river and now you're the mayor of a whole village. You get married and have a kid, and the coolest part is that when your character gets old and dies, you continue playing as your son. That's why it's called a dynasty. You are building a legacy that starts with absolutely nothing but a few sticks and ends with a thriving town that lasts for generations. In Belrite, you are a hunted man, forced to live on the edge, sleeping outdoors, scraping for food, and trying not to get noticed. The world is quiet but tense, and from the first hour, survival is the main goal. You're weak, under-equipped, and the land does not care if you fail. At the start, even basic tools feel like a luxury. You gather sticks, stones, and plants just to stay alive. Crafting your first weapon or piece of clothing feels like a big win because it actually is. Combat is slow and risky, and one wrong move can end everything. You are not meant to charge into fights early on. Planning, positioning, and knowing when to run matter more than being brave. What sets Belrite apart is how your growth is tied to building a settlement and earning trust. You're not just improving yourself, you're building a place from nothing. You recruit villagers, assign jobs, and slowly turn empty land into a working village. Every structure you build and every person who joins you makes the world feel less hostile, but nothing happens fast. Resources are limited, people need food, and mistakes can collapse everything you worked for. The game leans hard into realism. Weapons and armor do not make you invincible. Numbers matter. If you attack a group alone, you will lose. Training villagers, managing supplies, and choosing when to fight becomes just as important as your own skill. Over time, you go from being a lone survivor to someone leading others, not because the story says so, but because you earned it through work and patience. Belrite nails the feeling of starting with nothing by making progress slow and meaningful. When you finally stand in a growing settlement with armed allies behind you, it feels powerful in a quiet way. You remember the nights spent alone in the woods with a crude weapon and no safety. The game never forgets where you came from, and that makes every step forward feel real and deserved. The game actually starts you off in a worse spot than 0 because you are in debt. You wake up after a shipwreck and find out you owe a huge amount of money to your tribe called the blood price. If you do not pay it off in a few days, they will kick you out of your house and you'll be homeless. This adds so much pressure right at the start because you have to scramble just to keep the roof over your head. The survival in this game is really serious and it makes you feel very small in a big world. You do not just have a magical inventory that holds everything, you have to buy a backpack and physically carry all your stuff on your back. If you want to carry a tent and a cooking pot and food, you need a big bag, but a big bag makes you heavy and slow. When you get into a fight, you actually have to press a button to drop your backpack on the ground so you can dodge properly. If you run away from the fight, you might leave your bag behind and lose all your stuff. It forces you to be super careful about what you own. Combat is super tough because you are not a superhero. A couple of bandits or a hyena can kill you easily if you are not prepared. You have to use traps and potions just to survive a basic fight. Magic is not something you just unlock by leveling up either. If you want to use magic, you have to travel all the way to a huge mountain in the center of the map. It's a long and dangerous journey, and when you get there, you have to sacrifice some of your health and stamina permanently just to get mana. You literally have to give up a part of your own strength to get power. One of the coolest things is how the game handles dying. You never see a game over screen. Instead, when you lose a fight, you wake up somewhere else. Maybe a stranger dragged you to safety, or maybe bandits captured you and threw you in a prison mine. You might wake up in a cave without any of your armor, and you have to sneak around to find your backpack. It makes every loss feel like a new story instead of just reloading a save. You go from being a person in debt who is scared of the dark to a hardened explorer who has survived everything the world threw at you. It's a long and hard road, but it feels awesome when you finally get some good gear. Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 are old-school games that fully commit to the idea of starting as a complete nobody. When you enter these worlds, you are weak, broke, and totally unimportant. Nobody respects you, nobody helps you for free, and most people are stronger than you. The games make this clear fast by letting enemies destroy you in seconds if you wander into the wrong area. The world is open, but it is not safe, and it does not scale to protect you. In Gothic 1, you are thrown into a prison colony where strength is the only real currency. Factions run everything, and if you want food, gear, or safety, you have to earn it. Early combat is rough and awkward. Your swings are slow, your aim is bad, and even basic creatures can kill you. Training matters a lot. Until someone agrees to teach you, you stay terrible. This makes every small upgrade feel important because it directly changes how capable you are. Gothic 2 doubles down on this idea. The world is bigger, harsher, and even less forgiving. Wolves, bandits, and monsters roam areas you are clearly not meant to touch early on. The game never warns you. You learn by dying, reloading, and remembering where not to go. Money's tight, equipment is rare, and most NPCs treat you like trash until you prove yourself. You have to pick your fights carefully and often rely on tricks, terrain, or allies just to survive. What makes these games special is how natural the power growth feels. You do not suddenly become strong because the story says so, you become strong because you trained, joined a faction, learned new skills, and slowly replaced your trash gear with real weapons and armor. Hours later, when you return to places that once destroyed you and wipe out enemies with confidence, it feels earned in a way few games manage. Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 do not care about being fair or friendly. They care about making the world feel real and dangerous. You start at the absolute bottom, ignored and powerless, and climb up through effort, smart choices, and survival. That rough beginning is exactly why these games are still remembered today. They make the journey from nothing to something feel raw, personal, and unforgettable. This game is an isometric RPG that looks like the old Fallout games, but it is set in a world that looks like the Roman Empire after everything fell apart. It is famous for being incredibly unforgiving and difficult, but if you want the true experience of starting with absolutely zero, you have to choose the Drifter background at the character creation screen. In this game, your background is usually your job. If you pick a mercenary, you start with fighting skills and a guild that backs you up, and if you pick a merchant, you start with money and trading skills. But the Drifter has nothing. You are a complete nobody with no special skills, no reputation, and most importantly, no friends. In a world where everyone belongs to a powerful faction or a guild, being alone is basically a death sentence. You walk into the starting town of Tehran and nobody knows who you are and nobody cares if you live or die. The game warns you right away that combat is extremely deadly. If you try to fight someone as a drifter in the beginning, you will die in 1 or 2 hits because you do not know how to hold a sword or dodge properly. You are just a regular person trying to survive in a city full of assassins and corrupt guards. Since you have no guild to give you quests or protection, you have to figure everything out on your own. You have to walk around and talk to people and try to find odd jobs that do not involve getting stabbed. The best part about playing as a drifter is that it forces you to be smart instead of strong. Since you are weak and alone, you have to use your words to get out of trouble. You might lie to a guard or trick a merchant just to get by. Every single skill point you earn feels like gold because you are starting from the very bottom of the barrel. You have to claw your way up to even become average. It is a very lonely experience at first because you see all these cool guilds and groups hanging out and you're just on the outside looking in. But that makes it so much cooler when you finally make a name for yourself. By the end of the game, you can become a legendary figure who shapes the fate of the world, and it feels incredible knowing you did it all without a special background or a rich family to help you out. You went from being a nameless drifter to the most important person in the empire purely by using your brain and surviving against impossible odds. You wake up with almost nothing to your name, basic gear that barely works, and no real safety net. The game does not teach you slowly or gently, it just throws you into this ugly underground world and expects you to survive somehow. Most of the time, you are scared, broke, and one bad fight away from restarting. Early game Underrail is straight up stressful. You miss shots, you run out of ammo, and your character feels clumsy and weak. Even trash enemies can kill you if you rush in or play dumb. You start learning very fast that this is not a game where you can just fight everything you see. You have to think before every encounter. Where are the enemies standing? Can you pull one at a time? Do you have traps ready? Do you even have enough bullets to finish this fight? Resources are always tight. Medkits are rare, ammo is expensive, and money never feels like enough. You loot everything, sell junk, and still feel poor. Sometimes you win a fight and instead of feeling good, you feel relieved because you survived and did not waste too much gear. Crafting slowly becomes your best friend, not because it's fun, but because it's necessary. Making your own weapons, armor, and ammo feels like the only way to stay alive. The world itself makes you feel small. Stations are dirty, cramped, and full of people who do not trust you. Nobody treats you like a hero. You're just another person trying to survive underground. Quests are dangerous, travel is risky, and going into unknown areas feels like gambling with your save file. The game loves punishing bad builds too. If you make poor character choices, Underrail does not help you out later. You live with it or you start over. But if you stick with it, something slowly changes. You start understanding the systems. Your build begins to make sense. You control fights instead of panicking through them. Enemies that once destroyed you become manageable. You are still not invincible, but you finally feel capable. That feeling hits hard because you remember how miserable the early hours were. Underrail does the born with nothing idea extremely well because it never fakes the struggle. You earn every advantage, every strong moment, every win. Even late game, the world stays dangerous, and one mistake can still ruin you. It feels less like a power fantasy and more like surviving in a place that never wanted you there in the first place. And that climb from weak, scared nobody to someone who can actually handle the underground is what makes Underrail so memorable. Project Zomboid is widely considered the ultimate zombie survival simulator, and it does not care about your feelings at all. The very first thing you see when you load into the world is a black screen with white text that says, "This is how you die." It tells you right away that there is no happy ending and you are not going to save the world. You are just trying to survive a few days longer than the last time. You spawn inside a random house in 1990s Kentucky and you have absolutely nothing on you except the clothes you are wearing. You might get lucky and find a school bag or a plastic grocery bag to carry stuff, but usually you are shoving canned beans and water bottles into your pockets until you are over encumbered. You are just a regular person, like a burger flipper or a mechanic, or even unemployed. You are not a soldier and you do not have any special powers. The struggle to get basic items is incredibly real here. You have to sneak into your neighbor's house just to find a frying pan or a rolling pin to use as a weapon. If you smash a window to get inside, the noise might attract every zombie on the street. If you find a gun, using it is usually a death sentence because it is so loud that hundreds of zombies will swarm you instantly. You spend your first few days just frantically covering windows with bed sheets so the zombies cannot see you inside your safe house. The game gets even harder because eventually the water and electricity shut off for the whole map. This means you lose the safety of lights and unlimited water from the sink. You have to build rain collector barrels and learn how to use a generator, but you can only do that if you find the specific magazines that teach you how. You start with 0 skills, so you have to actually sit your character down and read books to learn how to do carpentry or first aid. It feels devastating when you lose a character in this game because you put so much work into keeping them alive. One tiny mistake, like a scratch from a zombie hiding in a bathroom, can give you the infection. There is no cure. You just have to wait to die. You can start a new character in the same world, but that new character spawns with nothing again. You can actually go find your old character who is now a zombie and kill them to get your stuff back, which is a super creepy and cool detail. This war of mine is not about becoming powerful. It is about surviving when you already lost everything. The game starts with a few civilians stuck in a broken house during a war. No weapons, no safety, barely any food, and no idea if tomorrow is even going to happen. From the first night, it feels heavy. You're cold, hungry, tired, and the city outside is falling apart. You spend your days fixing a ruined shelter, breaking furniture for wood, and trying to make something useful out of trash. Even simple things like a bed or a stove feel important. Food is always a problem, medicine is even worse. Someone gets sick, someone gets injured, and suddenly your whole plan falls apart. You are always short on something, and the game makes you feel that pressure non-stop. At night, you go out to scavenge. This is where the game really hurts. You sneak through dark buildings, trying not to make noise, hoping nobody sees you. Sometimes there's nothing worth taking. Sometimes there's plenty, but other survivors are already there. If you fight them, you might win, but someone on your side might break mentally afterward. Killing is not just a mechanic here. It sticks with your characters. They feel guilt, sadness, and regret, and that affects how they function back at home. The people you control are not soldiers. They're regular folks. A journalist, a teacher, a cook. They get depressed, they argue, and they shut down when things go too far. When someone dies, it is not dramatic or heroic. It is quiet and empty. The house feels colder, and the loss hangs there for days. You feel it as the player, too. Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey is weird in the best and worst way. You do not start poor, you start clueless. Like, actually clueless. The game drops you into the jungle as an early ape and just says, good luck. No map, no real tutorial, half the buttons do nothing until you figure out why they exist. For the first few hours, you feel dumb, not weak, and that is way more uncomfortable. You do not know what food is safe. You do not know which animals will kill you on sight. You fall, you bleed, you panic, predators show up, and your first instinct is to freeze because you do not even know how fighting works yet. Sometimes the smartest move is just screaming and running like an idiot. And yeah, that actually works sometimes. Progress is not about damage numbers or better gear. It is about realizing, oh, this thing does something if I hit it the right way. You pick up rocks, sticks, random plants, and most of the time, nothing happens. Then suddenly, something clicks. You sharpen a stick, you dodge a predator, you survive an encounter that would have wiped you out earlier. Those moments feel big because the game never celebrates them for you. You notice them yourself. The clan side of the game hits harder than expected. You are not just one character. You are a small group trying not to go extinct. If you play sloppy and get people killed, that is not just a reload moment. That slows everything down. Every new baby, every generation. That is how progress carries forward. Knowledge is the real upgrade, not muscles. Later on, when you move through the world with more confidence, it feels strange. Not powerful, just familiar. Places that scared you before now make sense. You know where danger comes from. You know how to react. And that's the whole point of the game. You did not start with nothing in your hands. You started with nothing in your head. And everything you gain comes from learning, failing, and remembering. That is why Ancestors fits this list so well. It is not clean, it is not smooth. It feels awkward and rough the entire time. But that climb from pure confusion to basic understanding feels earned in a way most games never even try. War Tales. This game is a gritty open-world RPG where you control a group of mercenaries, but do not let that word fool you because at the start you are basically a group of homeless people with rusty weapons. You are not saving the kingdom or fighting a dark lord. You are just trying to find enough food to survive the night. The game drops you into a map that feels huge and dark and dirty, and you have a handful of companions who are all hungry and unhappy. The hardest part about the beginning is that you have to pay your troops every few days. This mechanic stresses you out constantly because if you run out of money, your friends will actually leave you. You have to take on really cheap and dangerous contracts just to earn a few copper coins. You might agree to hunt down some thieves for a local farmer, but when you get there, you realize the thieves have better armor than you do. You have to fight strategically in turn-based combat because if one of your guys dies, he is gone for good and you lose all the time you put into training him. Survival happens at your camp, which you set up anywhere in the wilderness. In the beginning, your camp is just a sad little fire with everyone sitting on the dirt. You have to assign jobs to your people like fishing or mining or cooking. It feels really desperate when you are counting every single piece of bread because you know you do not have enough to feed everyone. You end up spending a lot of time running away from guards or powerful bandits because you know your squad is just too weak to win. As you play more, you start to scavenge better gear from the people you defeat. You go from wearing rags and holding pitchforks to wearing heavy plate armor and swinging massive hammers. You can upgrade your camp with a tent and a cooking pot and a workbench. Watching your group grow from a starving band of nobodies into a legendary mercenary company that everyone fears is one of the most satisfying feelings in any RPG. It really captures the feeling of working for every single coin you earn. Battle Brothers. This game is a turn-based tactical RPG that is famous for being incredibly brutal and unfair to new players. It's very similar to War Tales, but the art style is grittier and the world is much more unforgiving. You are the captain of a mercenary company, but you are not leading knights in shining armor. You are usually leading a group of beggars and farmhands and fishermen who are just desperate for a paycheck. When you start a new campaign, especially on the harder origins, your men are dressed in tattered shirts and armed with wooden clubs or kitchen knives. The world in Battle Brothers is a low fantasy setting, which means there is magic and monsters, but they are rare and terrifying. Most of the time you are fighting bandits or wild animals. The problem is that life is extremely cheap in this game. You can hire a guy, give him a name, and buy him a shield, and then in the very first turn of combat, an enemy archer can shoot him in the head and kill him instantly. There are no resurrection spells or phoenix downs here. When a brother dies, he stays dead forever, and all the money you spent on him is gone. This forces you to act like a scavenger in the early game. You will finish a bloody battle where half your team got injured just to loot a rusty helmet and a broken sword from the dead enemies. You get excited about finding a piece of leather armor because it is better than the cloth shirt you are wearing. You have to travel from town to town looking for work, but you have to be careful because if you run out of food or money, your men will get angry and desert you. The combat is very detailed and tactical. You have to worry about fatigue and morale. If a brother gets surrounded, he will panic and try to flee, and then he gets cut down from behind. It is heartbreaking to watch your favorite character get surrounded by orcs and ripped apart because you made one bad move. But this difficulty makes the progression feel amazing. You slowly replace your farmhands with actual soldiers, and you swap your wooden clubs from massive two-handed axes. You go from running away from thugs to hunting down legendary monsters. It is a true zero-to-hero story where the hero part is painted in blood and mud. Okay, so look, this game is honestly one of the ugliest games you will ever look at because it is all pixelated and brown and gray, but you have to ignore the graphics because the gameplay is actually insane. Neo Scavenger is basically the ultimate homeless simulator. You start the game waking up in this cryo tube in a ruined laboratory and you have no idea who you are or what happened to the world. You are wearing a hospital gown which provides zero warmth and has no pockets, and the first thing that happens is a werewolf monster is trying to break down the door to eat you. So right away, the game is telling you that you are weak and you are probably going to die. The thing that makes this game so stressful is the inventory management. In most games, you just put stuff in your invisible backpack, but here, if you don't have a bag, you have to hold things in your hands. So imagine walking out into a frozen wasteland holding a glass bottle in one hand and a stick in the other. That is it. That is all you can carry. If you want to pick up a lighter you found on the ground, you have to drop the stick. It is so frustrating, but it makes finding a plastic grocery bag feel like the biggest victory ever. You will literally cheer because you found a plastic bag to put some berries in. The survival stuff is way too detailed. You have to watch your body temperature, your hunger, your thirst, and even your pain levels. You start the game barefoot, and if you walk around outside without shoes, you will get cuts on your feet. Then those cuts get infected, and you can't run away from enemies because you are limping. So you end up ripping up your hospital gown into rags just to wrap them around your feet like makeshift socks. You look ridiculous, but it keeps you alive for 5 more minutes. And the water is a whole other problem because you have to scavenge for empty soda cans or glass jars so you can boil water over a campfire. If you drink straight from the river, you get a stomach virus and die in your own filth. Combat is really weird because it is turn-based and uses text to describe what is happening. You don't see cool animations, you just read a box that says something like, you tackle the raider and he falls down. It sounds boring, but it is actually intense because one bad move ends your run. You can try to threaten an enemy to make them back off, or you can try to trip them. If you get hit in the head, you might get a concussion and pass out, and then the enemy just finishes you off while you are sleeping. The coolest part is how you slowly turn into a wasteland warrior. You go from being a barefoot guy shivering in the rain to wearing a patchwork coat made of wolf fur, carrying a spear you sharpened with a glass shard, and pulling a shopping cart full of supplies. You feel like you really earned every single item you have. You scavenge abandoned office buildings and houses, tearing up curtains to make bandages, or finding a single battery for a flashlight. It is a super lonely and quiet game, but the stories you make in your head are better than any movie.
你是否在教会也会听到牧师跟长辈说，现在的年轻人不读经不祷告，不顺服牧者，也不敬畏上帝，末世必有危险的日子临到，讲的一副世界末日要到来，都是年轻人害的一样。我现在36岁，所以根据我自己的定义，36岁以下都是年轻人，所以我就代表年轻人来跟大家一起探讨一下，如何证明年轻人搞垮教会。你可能会说，为什么是36岁啊？我现在39岁啊，难道39岁就是中年人了吗？不用担心，差不多3年之后呢，我又会重新拍摄这个系列的影片，到时候的我就会定义说，39岁以下的人都是年轻人这样了。所以年轻人到底是怎么搞垮教会的呢？今天我会列出5个项目：第一，温室人类；第二，不愿意委身；第三，自我中心；第四，受害者心态；跟第5，代沟。先听我解释年轻人搞垮教会的第一个原因，温室人类。在讲解第一个原因之前呢，先感谢我的100位队友帮我按赞、留言跟热推，有你们差真的非常的多，少了你们的帮忙，我的影片会被演算法扣分，连订阅我的频道的人都看不到我的影片，这样。所以如果你愿意的话呢，你现在就可以按一按，也可以等到看完影片之后，你觉得内容不错，再把它按赞、留言跟热推下去，非常的感谢你。温室人类是怎么一回事呢？我们就讲当兵这件事情好了。基本上在台湾1980年之前出生的台湾男生，也就是现在在2026年已经45岁以上的男生，他们那个年代当兵就是2年或3年的，那个年代当兵是真的比较容易出人命的，而且说不定还真的会被派去打仗。如果你抽到的是金马奖，被派到金门马祖，像是我爸一样，那就真的是有够紧张刺激。我听了我认识的这些长辈们，他们讲起他们当年当兵的故事，没有任何一位长辈说当年当兵的日子真是开心满足啊，真是一段愉快的回忆啊，完全没有。我听到的都是他们在讲当年遇到什么令人傻眼的状况，遇到超级天兵，遇到机车班长，听个几遍你就会知道，当年的男生当兵是一件非常痛苦的鸟事，但又是一件被强迫要去做的事情。在当兵的过程当中，他们会遇到各种没人情的事情，各种不人道的待遇。在这个时候呢，长官只会说，合理的是训练，不合理的是磨练，撑过去就是你的了，没有对错，只有上下。也是因此，去当兵的男生，他们的亲朋好友看了这些去当兵的男生，都会观察到一件事情，那就是进去是男孩，出来是男人。基本上就跟所有的日本动画的主角们一样，打完弗利萨的悟空，分开2年的草帽海贼团，继承回忆之后的爱莲，这些的磨练都是非常辛苦甚至痛苦的。但是经历完这一番的磨练之后呢，绝大多数的人都成长了，都变强了，都更加认清现实了，也更能够独立的去面对人生当中的各样挑战。我直接跟你举一个大自然的例子好了，假如你今天盖了一座非常非常大的室内花园，上面是有屋顶的那一种，并且在花园当中你种下了一棵树，这棵树在小小的时候呢，它可以好好的长大，但是过个10年，过个20年，它越长越大，就会开始歪斜甚至倒掉。原因就是因为在环境当中没有受到风吹雨打的这些树木，它还是小树的时候呢，它没有足够的环境给它刺激，所以它下面的树根就长得不够粗，而上面的树枝却一直还在往上长、往外长，最后整棵树就会无法支撑自己的重量，然后就倒掉。温室长大的人类似乎也是这个样子，小的时候呢，有家长有老师保护呵护，这个人小小的时候呢，可以长得好好的，但过个几年，等他们青少年，等他们出社会，就开始歪掉，跟同学吵架就不去上学或转学，跟同事处不好就不去上班或辞职，交往对象一直换，又或者是一直不敢结婚，甚至严重的时候呢，会开始出现一些心理疾病跟忧郁症。先打岔一下，并不是所有的心理疾病的人或忧郁症的人都是这个样子啦，反而多的是因为环境太恶劣了，反而导致了心理疾病跟忧郁症。换句话说，太舒适的环境跟太恶劣的环境都是不健康的。不过我们还是先回过头来讨论温室人类好了，在他们人生当中遭遇的各种大魔王、小魔王，不管是人际关系啊、课业压力、自我认同、社会的常态，总是会有一些 NPC 杀出来，替他们挡子弹，替他们把魔王干掉。有时候是他们的父母，有时候是他们的老师，有时候是整个政府的整体政策。现在我也不是在追究责任，到底是谁害的，到底是谁的错，为什么会造出这么多的这些温室人类。无论如何，无论这个状况是谁造成的，当一个人从小到大就是没有足够的机会去风吹雨打，去训练磨练，去扛下自己该扛下的痛苦，那么当他们进入青少年时期或者是成年的时候呢，他 他们就成了发育不良的温室人类。他们的树叶、树枝已经越长越大了，但他们的树根扎得不够稳，所以整个人就越来越歪，甚至最后拦腰折断。这边先提醒一下，我可不是在合理化当兵的时候很多人遭到的这些不人道待遇，我也没有说当兵就一定是一件好的事情，我自己也只是当过替代役而已。我只是提出我的观察，我的观察就是 Good times create weak men， 生于忧患，死于安乐。普遍上，温室长大的人类，我们实在是无法期待他们有多少的抗压性。在这边我指的抗压性也是一个相对值啦，不是一个绝对值。此时此刻的状况就是老一辈的人，他们从0岁到20岁所经历的风吹雨打，跟年轻一辈的人，他们从0岁到20岁所经历的风吹雨打，就是老一辈的人比较多，至少我是这样认为的。那的确并不是所有人都这样认为，虽然现在的学生基本上从幼稚园就有冷气吹，一路吹到大学毕业，而且是吹到当兵，而且几乎所有的人躺着都有大学可以念，出生就有健保保障，出社会有强化过后的劳基法的保障，但是依然有人认为现在的20岁年轻人，他们人生经历的风吹雨打打得比50年前的20岁的人还要更多。我是真的不知道他们是怎么换算出来的就是了。反正当一个抗压性比较高的世代在跟一个抗压性比较低的一个世代相处的时候呢，就很容易觉得说这个抗压性低的这个世代都是草莓族，而我认为他们的观察是正确的。温室人类就是比较容易成为草莓族，只不过草莓不草莓这也都是相对的。如果我们去古代用时光机把一个古代人抓过来，让这些古代人去看现在的老一辈的人，这个时候老一辈的人同样也会被他们看为是草莓族。所以呢，我们就来到了教会被搞垮的这件事情。像是我身为教会的传道人，我当然希望我的教会当中的基督徒每一个都抗压性很高，而且有超强的纪律、超强的自律、很高的忠诚度以及使命必达的精神。当然我也知道，虽然我心里有这样的一个期待，但这样的一个期待也是错误的啦。教会本来就应该会塞满很多各式各样问题的人。假设真的有哪间教会它只剩下精英分子，那反而这间教会应该要检讨一下，为何只剩下精英，以及能够成为精英的人会愿意留在这间教会。那世界上剩下80%的人，是不是一辈子都不要去你们这间教会了？反过来呢，其实也是一样的。如果今天有一间教会全部都只剩下需要被照顾的人，根本只有牧师一个人能够去付出去照顾别人，那也不太好。因此我认为一间教会如果要成为一间所谓合神心意的肢体，那么就不能够全部只靠着传道人来撑着，一定需要教会当中有很多不是全职的基督徒来一起付出，才有办法让一间教会成为一间健康的正常的教会，而不是变成了一个心理咨商中心或者是精神病院。所以这个时候呢，我认为啦，一间教会至少要20%的教会人口是蛮认真参与在教会当中各样大小事情的经营的。假设今天有一间教会它有100个人，那大概就会需要至少20个人成为所谓的委身者，他们愿意每一周花自己的时间、自己的力气去维持教会当中各样项目的运作。而且理论上随着时间会愿意投入教会的这些人呢，应该要增加才对。因为其他的一般会友，当他们看到这些愿意投入经营教会的那些委身者的时候，虽然那些委身者他们愿意付出，他们愿意牺牲，是蛮不容易的，但看到他们都欢喜快乐，他们每周花5个小时、10个小时，甚至15个小时，一起参与在教会当中预备教会的活动，一起读经祷告，一起照顾儿童、照顾老人家，并且在过程当中，他们真的可以感受到上帝的爱，又把上帝的爱付出到别人的身上。哇，那这个时候教会当中其他的这80位的一般会友，他们也会意识到说，其实啊，我大部分的时候也只不过是把这个可以拿去教会付出的5个小时、10个小时，拿去躺在床上、躺在沙发上滑滑手机就滑掉了而已。所以慢慢的就应该会有更多的人加入。假如今天又加入了新的20位的一般的会友成为了委身者，那当一间100人的教会有40位委身者的时候呢，那理论上这间教会也不应该停留在一间100人的教会了，因为有40位的委身者的时候呢，应该是可以稳定经营一间200人的教会才对。那当然这个数字也只是当参考啦，我不认为追求教会的人数应该是教会最大的目标，但是你也应该同意，假如今天真的有一间100人的教会，然后它里面已经有80位委身者了，然后这80位委身者只需要是付出，然后去照顾剩下的这20位，你不觉得 哪里怪怪的吗？我认为，如果有一间教会有超过一半的人都已经是委身者了，那么这间教会如果没有办法继续去扩张自己、去触及、去照顾到的人，那么这间教会就很有可能变成了一间内聚又排外的一间教会了。好，那现在终于可以讲到温室人类年轻人到底如何搞垮教会。教会本来就会有人口流动，总是会有人时间到了回天家，总是会有人因为各种的原因搬家离开，而教会中的委身者也会年纪越来越大嘛，所以本来就需要新一代的委身者一起加入教会的经营。于是问题就来了，温室也好，没有温室也好，年轻人普遍上愿意委身的人数就是比较少，已经习惯了跟同学吵架就转学，跟同事吵架就离职的人，也很有可能因此在教会里面，只要自己负责的教会事务上面跟别人起了一点点的摩擦，马上就会翻桌说自己不干了，甚至直接换教会。这当然跟前面提到的这个温室人类有关了。当一个人的抗压性比较低的时候呢，他就比较有可能因为一些相对之下比较小的事情就搞到情绪崩溃。当一整个世代普遍性抗压性都比较低的时候呢，那愿意委身在教会中的人就会出现一个很大的断层。近10年的统计，似乎绝大多数的教会都在流失年轻人，而且愿意留下来成为委身者的年轻人也都在下降。许多年轻人从小在自己的教会长大，他们有教会可以参加，本身就应该是一个值得感恩的事情了。他们能有教会参加，建立在老一辈的人的委身跟牺牲之上。如今轮到年轻人该来承接了，但他们的回答是我不要。许多教会当中的年轻人会说，教会中的长辈当年委身辛苦经营教会，理论上现在应该轮到我了，但是我不要。就像很多的年轻人会说，我的爸爸妈妈当年愿意辛苦生我养我，理论上现在应该轮到我了，但是我不要。这样思维的年轻人，他们的出发点就是自我中心。他们从小身为温室长大的人类，他们看见整个世界都是绕着他们在转的，别人在自己的身上付出，别人在自己的身上牺牲是应该的，自己要不要牺牲付出，看的是自己当下的那个心情。人人为我，我还是为我，甚至进入下一个境界，也就是受害者心态。温室人类身在福中不知福之外，他们还有更高的几率出现受害者心态。当他们看到别的同学、别的朋友从小长大的温室比自己还要更高级的时候呢，他们就会开始觉得自己很可怜。他们会觉得说，为什么别的同学都有最新的 iPhone Pro， 而我呢只能用一只普通的 iPhone？ 他们会觉得为什么别的朋友家人过年的时候呢都会去欧洲玩，而自己一家人却只能去比较便宜的日本旅游？教会中也是一样，大家手机一划开就可以看到全台湾最受欢迎的几间教会，他们的音乐敬拜，他们的主日讲道。于是这个时候呢，很多的年轻人就觉得自己很可怜，为什么别的教会的音响设备是百万、千万台币的，而自己教会的音响设备加起来也只不过50几万台币而已？他们看不见自己有的，只看见自己没有的。于是我们就会观察到下一个现象，那就是有一些的教会，如果全部都是年轻人，或者是年轻人的比例非常高的话呢，那么你就会在这间教会里面发现会有非常多是从别的教会跳槽过来的年轻人。那先不要误会我的意思，我没有说教会跳槽都是不好的，我没有说一间教会里面如果出现很多跳槽来的一些年轻人，那么这间教会就是不好的。我当然知道，如果今天有一间教会，它可以吸引非常多的年轻人，甚至把很多别的教会的年轻人都吸引过来的话，那么就代表这间教会一定在很多方面是做得非常好的。我当然也知道，如果一间教会流失很多的年轻人，那大概代表这间教会自己本身也是蛮有问题的。这都是废话，我已经拍了这么多影片在讲教会问题了，所以麻烦大家逻辑清楚一点。若 P 则 Q， 代表若非 Q 则非 P， 而不是若 Q 则 P。听不懂自己去问 ChatGPT。这边的重点是我认为一间有问题的教会留不住年轻人，甚至大量的年轻人流失了，不代表离开这间教会的年轻人都是无辜的受害者。因为我认为会离开自己教会的年轻人，很有可能就是温室人类，就是不委身，就是自我中心，就是受害者心态。毕竟少数有问题的教会，还是有少数的年轻人是愿意留下来成为委身者的，但只剩下少数了。而我认为，如果可以有更多的年轻人愿意留在有问题的教会成为委身者，并且花时间建立与牧者与长辈的信任关系，或者建立一个够强大的 YouTube 频道，直球对决有问题的教会与牧师，像是100万订阅的麦克威尔牧师的频道一样，那么我就觉得健康的教会就会越来越多，心理素质、信仰状态健康的年轻基督徒也会越来越多。但这就需要跨越一个最大的一个问题，那就是代沟。年轻人很容易觉得代沟就是老一辈的问题，都是因为他们跟不上时代，都是因为他们固执，他们活在过去。很多的年轻人是这样认为的，而我认为没错，真的就是这个样子。 但是谁比较有能力去解决代沟的问题呢？我上一部影片讲到假先知被抓到了，在我看来这就是一个代沟问题。美国的超大型教会 Bethel Church 老一辈的牧师们，因为不熟悉社交媒体网络世界，因此在处理网络跟社交媒体相关的问题的时候呢，他们的理解跟年轻一辈的人理解有很大的一段差距。于是年轻一辈的牧师 Mike Winger 牧师就制作了一个将近6个小时长的影片，把其中一个事件的问题整理出来摊出来，外加 Bethel Church 里面年轻一辈的领袖的声音，最终才出现一个比较圆满的解决方案，比较好的一个结局。因此我认为，即便代沟是老一辈的问题，但代沟也是年轻人比较有能力去解决的。假如真的是因为老一辈活在过去，那么能够帮助他们从过去走入现代的，不就是年轻人吗？不就是我们的责任吗？问题就在于绝大多数的年轻人不愿意做这件事情。当老一辈的人思维转得慢，跟不上的时候呢，年轻人很有可能就会决定直接把他们抛下，不一定会搞到这个关系决裂的地步啦。不代表说把他们抛下就一定是没有办法跟他们保持和平，但是心里面大家其实是知道的，我们已经把彼此拒绝在外了。这件事情其实一直在重演。换句话说，那些把老一辈的人抛下，出去自己闯的年轻人，将来注定自己老了之后呢，就会被自己的年轻人抛下，除非他们能够跟老一辈的人把关系修复，把代沟解决。学会当儿子之前是没有办法好好当爸爸的。我知道，当然有例外，如果有一些教会的老一辈教会领袖们就真的是为非作歹，那是另当别论的事情。但根据我的猜测，大部分年轻人抛下的这些老一辈，并没有为非作歹，单纯就是代沟造成的误会造成的伤害而已。讲结论之前呢，再次感谢我的100位队友的支持。如果你也想要帮助我的影片的话呢，不被这个演算法扣分，然后大家都看得到，你也可以按赞留言跟按下热推的按钮。热推的按钮就是你把那个留言区在手机上面这样往旁边一滑，就出现一个热推的按钮，可以按下去。你当然也可以成为我的 YouTube 会员来支持我在这边做的事情。结论基本上就是这个样子。我之前的影片已经提到了教会老人搞垮教会，而那个影片下面的留言区有700多个留言，好多的年轻人跑出来同意那一部影片的内容，所以我们就来看看这部影片会不会也很多的年轻人愿意承认自己的问题，还是说大家只是严以律人宽以待己，双重标准前后不一。更多的补充内容记得我都会有直播来跟大家聊聊。今天就讲这边，拜拜。
神龙摆尾。